Hi there, Jeep owners. Today in your 2020 Jeep Renegade, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Curt's 4-pole vehicle wiring harness. And this is what our wiring harness looks like when it's installed. That's right, you can't even tell that it's there because this harness is designed to live inside the vehicle. So we keep it stored inside of our storage compartment in the back, and when we're ready to use it, we can just drape it down over the back, and it will pinch in between our weather stripping, holding it in place. The only thing you want to avoid is the striker here, because the weather stripping is not going to damage it, but the striker could potentially. We now have our 4-pole end outside the vehicle. That's going to provide us with all of the necessary lighting for our trailer, which includes our left turn signal, right turn signal, tail lamps, and brake lamps, ensuring people behind you know your intentions when you're going down the road, and keeping you DOT compliant and legal in all states. What I like about this harness is that it's custom designed for our Renegade here, so it plugs directly in line behind our factory tail lights, and it has a module in line with that harness that comes included with it. It's made onto it, and it uses the module to monitor the lights that goes to each of our taillight assemblies, and then the module will see what signal it was and reproduce that signal and send it out to our 4-pole. What's nice about that is that if there's any faults on our trailer, our module can detect those faults and shut down the circuit. And in the event it's unable to shut down the circuit in time, it has its own dedicated power circuit with the fuse. It'll just open up that fuse and not affect any of the wiring on your Jeep. You can then repair your trailer and replace the fuse for your module, and you're back up and running again. With it being custom fit for our vehicle, it's fairly easy to install. We do have to remove a few panels from the back of our vehicle here to access the connectors we need, but it should go relatively quickly. Why don't you follow along with me so you can have the confidence to do it at home. We'll begin our installation here at the back of the vehicle by pulling out any mats and trays that you've got back there, coverings here. We'll then need to remove both of our cargo hooks. Flip the hook up, and then you can pop it up from this side. You'll see a little notch that your screwdriver will fit in, and that'll go underneath of it and pop it up. And then we'll remove the Torx bolt using a T40 Torx socket. There's one just like this on the other side. We're also going to take that out. On the inside of our panel now, just as we roll around on the inside, there's going to be 3 screws we'll take out with a Phillips screwdriver. One on each side and one in the middle. We can then grab our paneling and just pull upward on it. We're just going to work our way down. And then we'll lift the panel out and set it aside. If any of the clips stayed behind, you can take your trim panel tool or screwdriver and get up underneath of those. And this is just going to slide right back in place. We'll then need to remove our upper panel here. Located up here, you'll have a small cover. We'll pop that out with our screwdriver. I'm just going to pop this little plastic piece out right here. So just get behind it and it'll just pop out of there. We'll then take a 5mm Allen key to remove the bolt located behind the cover. And if the bolt stays in there, it's not a huge deal. If you can fish it out, great. If not, you can always grab it later. We'll then pull our weather stripping back, and we can go ahead and pull it back all the way down because we are going to be having to pull this bottom panel out some. But before we can even remove part of the bottom panel to access our connector, the top one here has to come out because it's hiding some fasteners. So we're just going to start pulling it away. I like to use the trim panel tool to assist me to make sure I can pry at the furthest point in to ensure that nothing breaks and we get it to pop out. Now that we've got this pulled out some, we only need it to be pulled out far enough to where we can actually get our wires down and fed out of it, because we can actually access the connector through the door located here. It's just that once you get to it from this door here, we've got no way to route the wires. That's why we had to take our panels loose. If we look just inside of this opening, you'll see right here is our connector wire. So we're just going to press in on the release tab and pull that out. You can see the small release tab located right there. We can now take our wiring and we're just going to kind of tuck it behind this panel here. We're going to be using the connector that has the yellow, brown, and white wires, because this is going to plug in line behind our taillight assembly. So we're just going to feed it back over to here. We'll then take our factory connector and plug it into our harness. And then we'll take the other end of our connector, from our harness and plug it back into the taillight assembly. Next, we're going to be hooking up our ground wire, and we're just going to attach it to the stud located here. This is plastic here, but the stud is metal, the bolt is metal, and all that is going to be grounded, so we're going to be perfectly fine there. So we're just going to zip that nut off, make sure we don't drop it because it might be difficult to access. We'll then take our ground wire here. We're going to slide it back over that stud and then reinstall our nut. Now over on our passenger side, we're going to remove our panels in the same way so we can get the wiring routed over here. This one has an access panel on this side as well, but again, we're going to have to pull it back so we can get our wires tucked up in there. On our passenger side here, we're going to disconnect our connector just like we did on the driver's side. Plug our harness in line with it, and then plug our new harness back into the taillight assembly. If we slide our lower panel to the side here, we can access our floor pan here. And there's really no grommets or anything to be able to pass your wiring through, and we need to run a power wire up to the front. And depending on what you're using your Jeep for, you may want to pass your 4-pole through and have it on the outside, although with this harness it is intended to stay on the inside. If we remove this raised section right here, we'll see that there's a little bump right there, and that actually goes to a stud that's sticking out on the bottom of the car. So we're going to come just to the rear of that, and we're going to drill out a hole so we can pass it through. We just recently installed a hitch on this as well, and when you install the hitch, you have to remove some grommets from the frame. So we can go ahead and repurpose the grommet that we removed from the frame and put it in this location. We're going to be using a 37/64 drill bit to match the size of our grommet here. The bottom of our grommet, we can just snip this off. You can use a pair of scissors, or I'm just going to use my razor knife here to just cut the bottom of it off. So we're then just going to insert this back down into the car. And we can then grab our wiring, make our connection, and start feeding it towards the front. The black wire coming off of our module is the wire that we'll need to run to power up at the front. This does already come pre-stripped, but the wire that comes with your kit that we're going to use to connect to extended up there does not. So we're going to strip this wire back. We can then attach the included butt connector to it. Crimp it down, and then we'll crimp the other end to our module. Now we can go ahead and get the module mounted up now. It does just use some double-sided adhesive tape to mount it, but it's a good idea to mount it before running your wire, so that way you don't end up being a little bit short on length if you don't have it quite where you want it. So we're just going to peel off the adhesive backing. We're going to stick it to the back side of our module here. And then you'll want to use some alcohol on a cloth to clean the area where we're going to stick it. We're just going to take it and put it back up down in here. So we're just going to wipe off the back inside here. We can then peel off the other side of our backing, and then we'll just reach in there and press it in place. It's good practice to hold it for about 20 to 25 seconds to ensure that you get good adhesion. We'll now take our black wire and we're going to shove it through the grommet, and then we can go down bottom and grab it and finish pulling it all the way through. Then I'm going to route this wire up to the engine compartment so we can hook to the battery. I'm going to route that wire now, and then I'll show you the path that I took to get it into the engine compartment. So from where our wire passed through the grommet, we just go down following our factory wiring here. From there, we just poked it right in here next to the brake lines that are located here. There's an open hole, so we just fed it right through that hole and then went around the side of our fuel tank here. Once we got to this panel, we did stay on top of the panel, and we actually routed it right along with our lines, because right on the other side of this panel, there's a channel that our lines run in, and we can just poke that wire right in on top there and run it all the way down this channel until it comes out here at the front. From here, we go up into the engine compartment. The easiest way to get your wires from down here to up there is to use like a coat hanger, something that's stiff enough that you can go from the top and poke it down, grab it down here and then tape your wires to it and then pull it back up. Here's our wiring that passes up right here. We're going to be attaching that to a fuse harness that goes to our battery. So we can go ahead and lift up on the panel in here. Just pull that out and set it aside to expose our battery positive terminals. We're going to hook it right here to the battery positive. Our fuse harness is located here, and it does come pre-stripped, so you can just pull those ends off. We're going to be putting the ring terminal that comes in our kit onto one end, and then on the other end we're going to be connecting a butt connector. We're going to be upgrading ours from the butt connectors that come in our kit to heat shrink butt connectors, which are available here at etrailer.com. This will ensure that no moisture can enter this connector since it is outside the vehicle, unlike the ones we previously installed inside the vehicle. Battery here, so we're going to remove the nut located here with a 13mm socket. Take our fuse harness, we're going to slide it on like that, and then reinstall our nut. We can now take our black wire that we had routed up here, and we're just going to get an idea of how much length we need, about to right there. So we can go ahead and cut off the excess we don't need. We'll then strip back our black wire. And connect it to the other side of our heat shrink butt connector. We'll then just use our heat gun to shrink this down. We can now insert our fuse, and at this point I recommend testing your system out and making sure it's working properly. I highly recommend using a tester over your trailer, because if you have any faults on your trailer, it can give you false readings whether or not that your installation of your wiring harness is working properly. You can get a tester like this here at etrailer.com. Make sure you have your left turn signal, right turn signal, tail lamps, and brake lamps. With everything working properly, we can zip tie up any loose wiring that we have and reinstall all of our panels in reverse order of how we remove them. And that completes our installation of Curt's 4-pole vehicle wiring harness on our 2020 Jeep Renegade.